Welcome to the World Nomads podcast, delivered by World Nomads, the travel lifestyle and insurance brand.
There's something about the islands here that touches people's souls.
Hopefully we're making an impact in the world that people will stop killing and culling sharks.
It looked like snot and it smelled bad, but then let that put you off. It was good for you.
What else in the world you're going to see the condor 3 meters right in front of you?
No, absolutely.
There.
I'm not sure if I want to see the condor 3 meters in front of me.
So many things in our society that are throwaway, and we see those things on our beaches, on our coastline.
Has anyone ever pooped themselves?
Sometimes the Germans can come off as cold.
I think it's important to remember what has happened, but also look forward to into the future and be positive about it. And that's, I think, what Germans are.
It offers travellers the opportunity to teach English to children and experience the Panamanian... Oh, that's going to be hard.
Speaking of teaching English...
I've got to learn to speak it.
We were all told that you can't take a leak into the river. You can't urinate into the river because there's a parasite that will swim up your urine stream.
Yeah, Phil, you...
An idiot?
It's not your usual travel podcast. It's everything for the adventurous, independent traveller.
Woohoo! What do you think of the new intro?
I loved it. Very good. I like it.
I love Johnny McGass's voice. I could listen to him all day.
We keep forgetting. We've got to have him in. We've got to talk about his travels and where he's from and everything.
We will do that.
We'll pull him in soon.
We have hinted in other podcasts that you will not believe what his nationality is based on his accent.
Should start a competition. Oscar style, give away a jet ski.
Yeah, in fact, in this podcast, we're going to speak about a competition, but we're back in the studio to record episode 12, and we're ready. We've been to Italy, rather. We've been to Canada. We've been to Iceland. The list goes on. You can hear them all on iTunes. But where are we off to this time, Phil?
Well, I'm excited about this one. I'm very interested in this as a destination. We're going to South Korea. Now, as we know, it's a bit of a troubled place at the moment. The Korean War in the 50s. Everybody knows about I have to say it with the American accent, the DMZ. Doesn't quite sound the same as DMZ. Demilitarized zone. That's where they basically caused a ceasefire. And as we're going to find out, there's some families have been split up by that line and still haven't got back together. Yeah,
exactly. It's full of high-rises too, South Korea. In the Seoul area alone, 25 million residents.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Have I delivered you like almost a quiz question?
That's it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So who is on the show? Well, Ariane runs a travel blog. It's called seeyousoon.ca with a niche in adventure activities and cultural experiences. She's lived in South Korea and she does say, Phil, it's so much more than neon lights and K-pop music. Do you like the sound of a 20-month honeymoon?
Sure.
Oh, come on, correct answer.
Not at my age. I'm not quite sure I can manage.
Well, these newlyweds, Tim and Sarah, loved the idea. We caught up with them after they visited South Korea, including the demilitarized zone, and they're on this 20-month honeymoon. We'll ask the question why. Would you wait 67 years to see your wife?
No.
Oh, God. Can you have a bit of a think?
No, I wouldn't wait that long. I think that's terrible, having to wait so long to see family members. Terrible.
Well, with North and South Korea divided after the war in 1953, we speak with a journalist about families divided, and it's almost literally by a line in the sand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Plus, getting your money's worth out of a round-the-world ticket, travel news, and I'm sorry, I've kind of ruined it for you, a quiz question, but it's your moment.
All right, here we go. When you're driving overseas, 2/3 of the world drives on the right-hand side. Almost all the countries where they drive on the left are former British colonies or they've got a massive British influence. But there are 2 Asian nations which drive on the left despite no British influence. Can you name them? 2 very big Asian countries.
Ooh, I won't have a stab at it now, but we'll find out at the end of the episode. Ariane is a travel writer, a videographer and a photographer from Toronto, and she is also a World Nomads contributor. In fact, she wrote an article for us on South Korea, and it was about South Korea off the beaten track. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So there's much more to Korea than cities and neon lights and K-pop music?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those are probably the 3 main things that people will love about it, but there's so much more to the country. It's quite diverse in what it offers for travelers, tourists, as well as people who call it their new home, especially expats. There's a huge expat community there. That's actually what I was doing there as well. I lived there for 2 years, taught English at a all-boys semi-private school, and it was a really fascinating, interesting, and very enjoyable experience.
And that was in Seoul? That was in the capital?
Actually, no, I was in a really small town. It's called Jecheon. It's almost pretty much smack dab right in the middle of the country. And at first, when I moved there, I was like, where did I go? Coming from Toronto, being a big city, to a really small town was an adjustment. But I actually, about 6 months into it, I really enjoyed being in a smaller town and being able to go up to Seoul every few weeks to kind of have that big city experience. But being in a small town really forced me to have to learn a bit of the language, to really get to know the culture, and really just to dive headfirst into living in Korea.
Well, some of the links in the article that you wrote include eating like a local in South Korea. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so Korea's food is really, really fantastic. And the biggest thing that we all know is Korean barbecue. But that's just only one sort of aspect of it. Koreans love to eat depending on the season, depending on the climate that's happening outside. So whether it's the monsoon rainy season, they have foods that they'll eat then, versus in the cold winter months, they'll have different foods. If you're pregnant, they will tell you to eat certain things. And if you're a man that maybe wants to get somebody pregnant, there's also foods that they encourage you to have that will help you in that department as well.
Go on. What do you eat?
What do you eat?
Well, they call like man strength. So for
No, please tell me it's beer, because then, I'm okay.
Well, that helps, absolutely. But there are different, I guess, foods, and to be honest, I can't remember, because obviously that wasn't quite my department. But that's
tell you what, we'll look it up and we'll add it to the show notes. We'll do that. We'll find out what you need for man strength.
I'm looking forward to Googling that. Yeah. Also, another of your links is hiking in South Korea.
So hiking is, I'd say, probably the most popular pastime that Koreans do. Every weekend, you will see them in full hiking garb, taking on some new trail or some new mountain. Korea itself is very mountainous, so there are endless options of trails, from beginner levels to intermediate and advanced level trails. There's a lot just right in Seoul itself, which is not usual for many big capital cities to have something so adventurous right in the city center. You don't have to drive; you can take public transit to get there. But for people who really enjoy hiking, it's really just a fantastic destination for that.
Are you talking about what sort of grade of hike? Are we talking about a good stroll, or up to something really super difficult?
Both ends of the spectrum. I'd say the majority probably fall within intermediate to advanced level hiking. So using hiking sticks, to help distribute the weight, to make sure you've got proper hiking shoes for that, and to be packing snacks and ample amounts of water for the trail. The cool thing about Koreans is that they turn their hiking into excuses to picnic and to drink while they're hiking, and you'll regularly see them stopped just on the side of the trail and almost creating like a full sit-down barbecue meal. And somehow they pack it all up and they carry it with them. But don't be surprised if you're taken to the trails and they invite you to join. And I highly recommend that you do, because that's where you get the really cool experiences being in the country.
So Koreans like to party. What's it like to party with a South Korean?
Hopefully you've got a lot of energy, because they will go until the sun comes up. Soju is the drink of choice when you're out. It's about 20% alcohol, and it's pretty much like vodka, but it's distilled from rice. And things will usually start at a restaurant, and the way that they like to start their partying is with food, but then with soju. And generally what they like to do, if you're in a group, like a big group of people, minimum 1 bottle of soju per person has to be consumed when you're out having a meal. And then it will progress to maybe you'll go to norebang for singing karaoke, which, you know, a lot more drinking is involved then. Maybe you'll go to some of the bars and continue on. And it's just, it's they like to call it like keeping the atmosphere or keeping sort of the vibe. And if things are going really great, you're not supposed to leave. Like, you don't want to break the atmosphere that they've created. And sometimes that means you're going until the sun comes up. They work hard and they party hard.
If we slow it down a little, Buddhism has been introduced to South Korea and influences the culture. What sort of temples and things can you visit, and what's the etiquette?
Great question. The temples are found all over the country. Predominantly, actually, one great area to go to is Gyeongju. It's the old capital city in Korea. There's a lot of history there. And there you'll find one of the oldest temples in Korea. It's called Bulguksa. And it's a great spot to see monks actually practicing, as well as sometimes they offer temple stays, which is also another popular activity to do, where you can stay overnight in temples and learn more about Buddhism and the traditions that happen while you're at a temple. Also, a really cool temple that I got to visit often, because it was close to where I lived, was Guinsa Temple. It's close to Danyang, and it has this incredible hall. It's 5 stories high, and it's the largest in Korea. So in terms of sheer size, I think it's something like over 10,000 people can be in this one temple. And the architecture, if you're really into architecture, it's really fantastic, and makes for really fantastic photo opportunities. Plus, again, learning more about the culture. And I'm one who loves to learn about cultures firsthand, and doing a temple stay or visiting the temples throughout Korea is a great way to learn more about that.
Well, it sounds like a visit to South Korea. We need to be, as we say in Australia, match fit. That's up for all the eating, up for all the drinking, up for all the hiking, and then maybe calm down with a visit to a temple.
Yes. Yeah.
A link to Arian's blog will be in our show notes. Tim and Sarah, they're on a 20-month-long honeymoon. They're documenting it in their blog, Our 21st Century Odyssey. Let's check in and see if they've had a fight yet, Phil. And where did they get this idea?
Well, we took a year off back in 2014 and did a year-long trip around the world. And when we came back, we pretty much instantaneously knew that this was something that we wanted to do again. And thankfully, we work as consultants, and so it's fairly flexible for us with our jobs to take time off and then be able to come back when we want to and dive back into the same industry.
And so, is part of the aim to immerse yourself in the culture of the countries that you're in? You're not just simply ticking boxes?
That's right. That is definitely something that I make a personal point of sharing with others when we're talking about our trip, is that travel shouldn't just be something where you have a checklist and you're just ticking off, the 7 wonders of the world or a certain number of countries. But rather you should be pursuing experiences and immersing yourself within the culture. And so that's where we prioritize our planning, is when we're looking at going to a place, we think about what do we want to learn there? What do we want to get out of it? What do we want to give when we're there? And how can we be good examples of travelers around the world.
Now, you've heard of the honeymoon period?
Yes.
So at this point, have you had an argument?
We get along really well. We do have little disagreements here or there, especially if we're both hungry or tired. We can get, like anyone, sometimes a little short, but by and large, we get along really well and we make a good team. And the other thing too, when you're spending 20 months nonstop with someone, being in a fight is very inconvenient. So if there's ever a disagreement, we both want to resolve it. Yeah. And Tim and I are good travelers together. He is very easygoing, and I'm the one who tends to like to plan more and has done most of the itinerary planning and research into places. So it's really easy for me to be like, hey, Tim, do you want to do this today? And he's like, yeah, sure. and he'll pull up navigation on his phone and help get us there. And we have an agreement that if I do all the planning and the bookings, he'll do all the cooking and cleaning. So we've got a good delegation of workload there.
Excellent. Well, we chatted to a couple in our Iceland podcast. She revealed that her husband, his luggage is heavier than her luggage is after they leave each destination, which just goes against what everyone thinks about, women carrying lots of stuff in their luggage. What's the situation with you guys?
So we each have a 30-liter backpack, and then one smaller size day pack that we're carrying. And so everything that we have for the trip fits into those 2 bags.
You can follow Tim and Sarah's 20-month honeymoon with their blog, Our 21st Century Odyssey, and we'll have links to it in our show notes, including their itinerary from South Korea, where they also visited the demilitarised zone.
It fascinates me, the DMZ.
Yeah.
The pictures I see of it there. And apparently you can go into one room where you have a window on the other side and you're actually looking into North Korea, and it's all soldiers everywhere.
This will excite you, Phil. We've got some amazing photos from Sarah to share in our show notes.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see them. I love the place.
Well, we asked Sarah what it was like to visit the DMZ.
It's absolutely weird that you can go there as a tourist, and that's something that I was saying when we were in the bus on our way up there, it's so weird that they let us do this. And then when we were there and we're actually in this conference room where the North and South meet jointly to have conversations, and part of that room is technically in North Korea, and we're surrounded by military guards from both sides. And it's like, why are they letting us here? This feels so strange. It is very odd that they let tourists there, but it's very eye-opening into a place that some would consider, the most hostile border on Earth. And it was certainly the most unsettling experience that I've ever had as a traveler, to be there and to know that, just a few feet away is a place where the world operates in a completely different manner. And it's a place that, as an American, I will very likely never get to go unless things change pretty dramatically. So there was very much this feeling of, this is as close as I will ever get.
Incredible. And as Sarah says, it's probably one of the most hostile borders in the world. We'll share those amazing pics we talked about just before she told us about the DMZ in our show notes. And later in the episode, we'll catch up with a journo who wrote a recent article about families divided when North and South Korea split. Now, though, time to check in with our world nomads.
Hello. How are you? I'm fine, thank you, and you?
Oh, your English is good. Nice. Xin chào. Hello. Bye. And just like that, I'm in Hue, Vietnam. It's the former imperial capital and around 50 k's from the former DMZ or DMZ that once separated North and South Vietnam prior to the Vietnam War. In fact, Hue is the site of the Tet Offensive, which was one of the longest and bloodiest battles of the war. Now, we've spent most of our time in a village called Tuan, and while there are around 6 universities in Hue, if you come this way, just 20 minutes toward the East Vietnamese Sea or East Vietnam Sea, education's fairly low, so not a lot of English is spoken. Lots of hellos. So I was pretty interested to hear from those in the village that could speak English about why learning and practicing their English with travellers is important.
My name's Han.
And where are you learning English?
I learned it at my school, and my aunt can speak English and teach me. Yeah, my aunt lives in England, and I want to visit my aunt home. I met at English a few years ago. A teacher in primary school.
Primary school, yeah.
Yeah, and her teach me, and she teach me, and I can speak English now.
Okay, high five.
Yeah.
Thank
Where
you.
You live?
I live in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Australia?
I have a relative.
Yeah, relative.
In Australia.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Did they leave a long time ago?
About 30 years old.
30 years ago they left.
Yeah.
Was that after the war?
Yeah.
So how long have you been learning English?
2 years.
2 years? And why did you start learning English?
Because I want to have a communicate
with travellers.
Yes.
Yeah. And would you like to travel yourself?
Maybe Paris.
Why? Why Paris?
Yeah, because this is a country very romantic and very beautiful.
Find a girlfriend, marry.
Yeah.
In Paris.
In Paris? Oh, if I can. Because very difficult, yeah.
And you like people coming up and talking to you in English?
Yes, I like. Yeah.
To practice?
Yeah, to practice, yeah.
Yeah. Anywhere, what other country or town would you like to visit?
And I think in California.
Oh!
Yeah, because I have a cousin stayed there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. You have to save your dong.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I will stay lots of money for my travel.
Travel can be expensive, but with a little investigation you can find a cheap flight. Ian Patterson runs a travel blog, has a background in the travel industry, and knows how to secure the lowest round-the-world air ticket.
Yeah, well, this is a ticket that it's not really possible for people to book or buy themselves. So I come from a travel industry background as a travel consultant, and I've helped lots of people travel around the world, and consistently I find that the best airfares that you can get to do that with, the most cost efficient ones, the ones that open up as many destinations as possible are these kind of manually built fares. And so that's what the article was about, really.
So could anybody rock up to their travel agent and say, I want this really super cheap round the world fare?
If the travel agent has the contract to do it, or has the knowledge to build the fare type, then yeah, I mean they could. And your first port of call really would be to speak to someone at a travel agency about what they can do for you.
So you booked a year-long trip through it was Qantas, but you used a travel agent?
I did, yeah. I used an independent travel agent based in North London, and this was way before I got into working in the travel industry myself. And we had a bit of a chat. They were a previous backpacker themselves, so they kind of understood the kind of thing I wanted to do, the kind of trip I wanted to do. And we put together an itinerary which we thought best matched my budget and the places I wanted to go and see, and that's kind of how I ended up going on the trip that I did.
Yeah, come on, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it, right? So where did you go? And it's kind of complicated because if you miss one leg, you blow the whole thing out of the water. So explain where you went and how crucial it was to hit those deadlines, hit those flights.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is important to make sure you're there on time. So for me, I flew to South America, first of all, landing into Panama. And I traveled over land and sea through South America and exited out of Chile. And that's where I had my scare. On the last night before heading over to New Zealand, which is the next destination to go to, the guy I was traveling with had a bit of a heavy night and a bit of a lie-in in the morning, and we nearly missed that flight. And had we done so, I'm afraid we would have invalidated our whole ticket. So it would have been a bit of a problem for us on the other side of the world.
It would have been. So then you flew to New Zealand?
Yeah, absolutely. So I flew to New Zealand, and we spent about a month traveling around New Zealand. Went on to Australia, your home country, and spent some time on the east coast of Australia before heading off to Asia. And that's where I finished up. My last destination was in Asia, traveling around Thailand before going back to the UK.
How much cheaper, was it than doing individual flights?
Back then, it was about 1,600 UK pounds, which is about 2,500 Aussie dollars.
That's pretty good for around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and the quality of airlines were really good as well. It wasn't low-cost airlines where you've got to pay extra for the bag and you're squashed in with your knees around your chin. It was good quality airlines, So yeah, I think it was around 30-40% cheaper than if I pieced the tickets together myself.
And was there a lot of planning involved by you as well, like deciding where you wanted to go? And were there any, and in that planning, were there some places where you wanted to go, but it wasn't possible to do it on this ticket?
Hey Phil, all travelers are dreamers.
Yeah.
It took me ages to pin down that route, and I think my travel guy was very patient with me in piecing that itinerary together, which, you know, it took me about 6 months before I actually booked the thing. But, you know, that's what it is. It's, you know, it's a trip of a lifetime, and it takes a lot of planning, and that's part of the reason that I wrote the guide that I did, that you guys have taken a look at, just to help people in those initial stages of planning around the world ticket, so that they can get an idea of what works for you, what the routings are like, how much the costs are going to be, before you take it to the next stage and make a booking.
We'll have all the info you need to get your hands on those tickets in show notes. Thomas Mariska, though, is a journalist who wrote a story around the time of the Olympics in South Korea. Did you notice how my tone changed then? Because this is kind of a serious topic.
Serious stuff.
It is. He wrote this article for USA Today, and the title of which was How 3 Days Turned into 67 Years of Separation for These Koreans. And we asked him about that article.
You know, it's something that came up during the run-up to the Olympics when North and South Korea had their first sit down for, you know, a couple of years in anticipation of the Olympics. And, you know, it's something that the South had brought up as wanting to sort of start having these family reunions again, which they've only had a handful of in the past. You know, looking into it, you know, I learned that, yeah, there's really hundreds of thousands of families that had been separated during the war. I don't know, it's not something you normally think of as a consequence of a war. I mean, you know, there's the obvious separation of the country, and you see North Korea setting off missiles and doing nuclear tests, but, you know, you realize there's actually so many people whose lives have been affected in this deep way, you know, losing contact with mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. I spoke with the Red Cross in South Korea, who they kind of administer this, you know, very limited family reunion program that's been happening since 2000. Almost all of them are over 70, and, you know, even the like more than 60%, I think, are over 80. There's something like 60,000 people or 59,000 people that are on the list here in South Korea that want to have reunions with their family members in the North if it's possible, but that list has already shrunk from like 130,000.
I mean, how does this separation, this division of families, how does that drive the psyche of Koreans and the South Koreans that you've met? This must be, I mean, this is heartbreaking stuff.
It is heartbreaking. I mean, yeah, you know, there's something that, you know, talking to the people, I spoke to a few people for this article, and, you know, I think in some ways it's the time has been so long, and also there's something in, you know, maybe about people from that generation that are a little more reticent to talk about their feelings, kind of. And, you know, even within, I think, some Asian cultures, it's not as much of a thing to kind of express how you feel, or your sort of hidden personal pain or something like that. But, you know, once you start to speak to them and dig in a little bit, you know, it's quite obvious to see that it's left this hole in people's lives.
Tell us about the man that you spoke to, the 87-year-old.
Yeah, his name was Ro Hee Kwan, and he had been living in Kaesong, which is actually on the right on the border of North and South Korea. At that time, during the war, it was on the south side, but when the lines were redrawn at the end of the war, it's been on the north ever since. But he was living there with his mother and a couple of brothers, and was kind of like a student soldier, he described to me, you know, not really fully in the army, but I guess training. And his commanding officer told him, you know, okay, take 3 days worth of supplies. We're making this strategic retreat, which turned out to be the last time he saw his family.
And is the Red Cross doing the majority of the legwork in trying to help those people that have been separated?
Yeah, they've worked on this program for, I think this agreement was struck sometime in the 90s between the Red Cross in South Korea, and they do have a counterpart in North Korea. So I think, you know, to make it less of a political nation-to-nation kind of thing, you know, it's administered through them. So they're the ones who maintain this database of families who want to participate. I mean, not every family wants to. You know, it's really kind of, the South is ready to go at any second. You know, it's really the North that has been very, very hesitant to, to work with them, except for these periods. North and South relations kind of are this roller coaster, and there's a lot of times when there's just, almost no contact. So they've had 20 family reunions since 2000, and almost all of them, I think, take place in North Korea. And it's kind of like 100 families, members on each side get to meet for 3 days, a number of sessions over 3 days. And most of it is still kind of monitored. There's North Korean minders there, and I think they get like one personal meeting in a hotel room. But yeah, so it's the Red Cross that handles the logistics of it.
Have you heard that Kim Jong-un invented the hamburger and is the fastest runner in the world?
Yes.
Have you heard all those crazy stories?
Sure. Well, his father, Kim Jong-il, was supposed to have scored like 19 holes in one the first time he ever golfed.
That's right.
Yeah. There's kind of an information gap between North Korea and the rest of the world. Although, interestingly, and this is some other stuff that I've covered, if you talk to North Korean refugees that have made it to the South, a lot of them say that, there's more and more information is making its way into North Korea, just in the form of some people on the border areas, like with China, can pick up TV signals, and other people smuggle in on just little like USB sticks, South Korean pop music, soap operas, stuff like that.
No, they had to put up with Gangnam Style.
But for them, this is like a window to the world for them. And, it's actually, you talk to some, especially like younger North Koreans who have escaped and are living in South Korea now. A lot of them say that this is
a lot of them have heard Gangnam Style and have gone back.
They love their K-pop. They love it. They love it.
Yeah, it's just, or imagine like the TV shows. They see the lives that South Koreans live on these these soap opera type shows, and they see the cars they drive, just their houses and stuff, what they wear, and the North Koreans watching this realize, hey, our leaders are telling us South Korea is this hellhole, and we're the best country in the world, but I can see with my eyes that, that's not the case. So it actually kind of helps to bridge that disconnect between, reality and the sort of fantasy that North Korea is trying to weave. And a lot of people think, this may be the most powerful weapon, to force change in North Korea, not so much missile strikes, but just information,
Well, a very insightful chat, Thomas, and we're going to have to finish the podcast up with a little bit of Gangnam Style. Really appreciate chatting to you, and we will have a link to that article you wrote in show notes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
What travel news have you got for us in this episode?
Well, I'm not sure if this is travel news or another quiz question, but who are Joseph Puig and Ijong Choi? That's the names used on 2 Brazilian passports issued in the 1990s and allegedly used by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his father Kim Jong-il to attempt to obtain visas so they can visit Western countries. No word on whether they actually use them to get to Western countries, but you have to love a dictatorship where they ban everybody from travelling, but they can get themselves some Brazilian passports to go and party in Rio.
Yeah, exactly. Where do I feel like going this month?
All right. Meghan Markle has revealed how she avoids jet lag, and despite being affianced to a British royal, kind of makes sense. The first thing she says she does when she gets on a plane is wipe down the surrounding area with hand sanitizer stuff. Makes perfect sense. Those remote controls and the buttons on the screens. Yeah. No, you got to wipe them all down. Seriously,
you know what,
Megan?
Get bugs. No, you got to toughen up a little bit.
What, lick them?
No, not lick them, but seriously, have you ever got on a plane and wiped everything down?
Yep.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay. It's like I hose my kids down when they come back from, playgroup as well. But, the other thing she does, she coats the inside of her nostrils with a moisturising gel because she says dry and cracked skin will let the germs get in.
Okay, can we just stop for a minute?
Okay.
So she's gone on the plane. It's first class.
Wiped it down.
You'd assume that they would be in first class. They'd wipe it down. Yeah. She wipes it down.
Yeah.
Then she sticks her fingers up her nose.
Put some Vaseline up her nose, yeah.
Then what does she do, Phil?
Then she says she takes a high-strain probiotic for gut health. And then her words in this article, hydrate like you're dying of thirst, because even if you're not, your body sure is. Hydrating, I get. It's a very dry atmosphere when you're in a plane.
You've got to drink. There's a lot of free champagne. There's a lot. No, you've got to drink water.
And then she added that she never travels without a scarf or a cashmere blanket that feels like a hug.
All right, stay with us while we wrap this episode up, which we do with Phil's quiz question.
The answer of all the countries which drive on the left-hand side, 2 in Asia without British influence, Japan and Thailand. They drive on the left.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up episode 12. We're not going anywhere, though, until we hear a little bit of Gangnam Style. I loved it. Next, we're off to Indonesia, which includes a chat with a woman who's travelled to around the world, actually. This is your chat. The world solo. Totally on her own. A reminder to subscribe, rate, share on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Find us on Spotify and iHeartRadio, and contact us by emailing podcast@worldnomads.com. Bye.
Bye. Talk to you next time.
The World Nomads Podcast. Explore your boundaries.